What's up, guys? I just picked up a couple Ardent combos, and I figured I would show you how I spool them up using a technique called tee-shotting. Saltwater guys have been doing it for years to get more line on their spools. I use it to save money because I can spool the majority of the reel up with Braid, which lasts a really long time, and then only have the very top portion where you're actually fishing with be fluorocarbon. Instead of one spool of line lasting me one reel, I can make one 200-yard spool of line last pretty much 3 reels I get out of it. So it's ridiculously cheaper when you consider, even if you only have a few reels, a spool of fluorocarbon costs what, $20? Divide that by 3 instead of $20 per rod. I have about 30 rods, so I don't even want to consider how much my savings would be doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do. I'll move the camera a little bit closer so you can take a look. Alright, so I have my Ardent Edge Elite on the workbench right here. And what I've went ahead and did was I run the Braid. I'm using Power Pro Braid. It doesn't really matter what you use. The idea is not to have it come off the spool, but if it does, you still want to be able to use it. Because at the end of the season, or however long the line lasts you, you might get to a point where it can come off the spool, but it's not going to affect anything. And as a matter of fact, I use this for spinning rods because of line twist, and it's easier coming off the spool. It has no memory. So I might only have the first 30 feet actually be fluorocarbon, and the rest of it would all be Braid. You can go with the smaller diameter too, so it makes casting that much easier. So I'm doing it with this way. I have the Braid already down the reel, and I'm going to reel it on like this. You can also use the spooling stations that they have. I have one, it broke, and I never bought a new one, so I've just been doing this since it wasn't worth me buying another one. I'll zoom in the camera in. There's nothing really to spooling Braid on. The only thing I can say is with baitcasters, it's a lot easier than with spinning rods, just because on the spool, the only thing you need is to have, I'll take the spool right here, you want the line coming off the top of the spool. If it comes off the bottom, it's really not that important with Braid because there's almost no memory, but I do it as just a creature of habit. Fluorocarbon is more important, and the same thing with monofilament. If it comes off the top, the reel draws in off the top and brings it around the back. So this way, the memory on this right here is going with the spool. If you go the other direction, that's when a lot of times the line will jump off because you're literally spooling it against what it's been doing since it's been on the spool. When you start fishing with it, that straightens out, but you don't want it on the spool backwards because that's how it'll spring off. So I'll go ahead and zoom in and I'll show you. It's really not that hard to tie to the reel, but I'll show you how to do that anyway. And then I'll go ahead and spool it up because I don't think you need to see me cranking the reel. And we'll go ahead and go over the knot, how to tie the Braid and the fluorocarbon together. Okay, so I've got the camera zoomed into the reel now. I'm going to take the Braid. This is actually, I believe it's 50-pound test. You can go, I try to keep it around that, to be honest with you, because if it gets too light of a Braid, it gets really thin, and what's going to happen is you're going to need a lot of it to put on the reel. So, I mean, even 50-pound Braid is pretty thin, so going with this size is pretty good. Even 65 might not be too bad. It starts getting a little bit thicker there, but that's not really an issue either. So personally myself, what I'm using is what I have. It's 50-pound test. It's actually from some of my saltwater reels that I haven't used. I'm just going to put them on here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the line. I have a pretty clean cut, so I'm not going to really worry about wetting it or anything. I'm going to push it right here through the line guide on the front of the reel. I guess you can see that. And once I get that through, I actually try to start it with it in the center. Tighten the drag up here because this is a brand new reel. I like to start with it in the center. Now, I'm sure you can see on here, just about every bait casting rod that I've ever had has these holes drilled into it. They're pretty good because there's no way this line's going to slip once you put this through there. Alright, so I pushed it through here, and you'll see coming out the back, you might not be able to see it. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get it back up through, so just make sure there's enough line through it here, and then what I'll do is I'll turn the reel. So that, and go slowly, because like with this reel, this is a pretty slow one. It's only going to turn 5 times per handle, but if I turn that one time, it's going to go around 5. So real slow, just enough to get the spool to come back around. Once it comes back around, once it comes around, I'll actually put it in free spool. That way I can work with it a little bit more freely. It's not working with me here today. So I'm trying to keep my hands out of the view here. But I've got the line pushed through the holes here out the other side. And I've got the tag end up here at the top in my hand. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do an overhand knot, but I'm going to do a double because I don't want to take any chances. Put it through twice, around twice. I'm going to cinch it down, and then I'm going to do that one more time. A double, both times. Okay, so now that's on there. I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut this down right here real close. It's braid, so it lays down pretty good anyway. Got really crappy scissors here. It's braid, so it lays down anyway. So it's not that big of a deal if you have, you know, a 1/4 inch or anything. But now that's on there. Try to get it in the camera here. Now that's hooked up. It's tied up. It's not going to go anywhere. So I mean, there's absolutely no reason why you would ever get down to the base of this spool. But if you did, it's not going to come off. And there's no way it's going to slip. I don't know if you can see how I'm turning it and it's not spinning. But as soon as that knot gets to that last hole, it's not going to spin. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the braid on very tightly, because if you put this on loose, however you might do it, you know, if you don't have any, if you don't have a spooling station that you can spring up tension on the braid, have somebody hold the braid with a rag or something that's not going to burn their hands. That way they can put the most pressure you can on it, because you really can't over tighten it. You don't want it to be, to go on there loose and then have the line on top of it dig into it. It really shouldn't happen anyway, but it could, and especially once the outside part of the braid is going to be more prone to that, just because if it's too soft. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spool this up, and then once I have the amount of line, I'll show you how much I put on there after I do it. Once I have that on, I'll show you the knot to put the braid to the fluorocarbon, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now you can see here, this is about how much line I put. Oops. This right here is about how much line I put on the spool. I filled it probably 3/4 of the way up. It's on there pretty tight. That leaves me plenty of space to put the fluorocarbon top shot. So I've got the braid back here. I might have to zoom this out a little bit. I'm going to try to to do this in the field of view, but be close enough too that you can see what I'm doing. Alright, this is going to be probably a little bit hard to see. You can go online and look up, there's two knots that a lot of people use for this. You've got the Alberto knot and you have the Albright knot. Personally myself, I don't like either one of them. I've tried them. The Alberto is probably more likely to work. To me, every time I ever tie an Albright knot, it slips. I really don't know. It might be something I'm doing wrong, but every time it slips. I know a lot of people use glue so it won't slip. The knot that I've been using, I don't have to tie with glue, and as long as I've been using it, it's never slipped on me. I've had other knots or other sections of the line fail and had the my knot here come in fully intact. There's no name for this that I know of. There could be, but I don't honestly even know where I learned it, or if I just made it up. I have no clue. Maybe one day I'll have to do a test to see line strength, but I've never had one break, so I'm not planning on changing up anytime soon. So what I do is I take the end of the braid right here, and I double it over like this. It's kind of hard to see with this background. I do the same thing with the fluorocarbon. I double it over. So I have two loops. I take the braid and I put it through in the inside of the loop for the fluorocarbon. And I take the braid and I wrap it around about 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now all I do is I take, by the way, I hit my finger inside the loop for the fluorocarbon, that way it stays open. I now take the loop that I just wrapped around the fluorocarbon and I put it back through the loop on the fluorocarbon. Now I pull all ends, the loop end on the braid and all of it. Pull it all down. Now, I'm sure you know, lubrication is very important, especially with, lubrication is very important with, especially with fluorocarbon, because it heats up when you cinch a knot down on it. So, lubricate it. Pull it down. You're grabbing each part of the line, all of it, and you're grabbing it and you're pulling it real tight. Then I'll take and I'll grab just the parts that I'm keeping, the main line on the braid and the main line on the fluorocarbon, and I'm pulling it tight. You have a couple tag ends. Cut them down close to the knot. So you'll wind up having three things to cut. You have the one for the you have two of them for the braid, because you have the loop on the braid that pulls out, and then you also have the back side of the loop from the fluorocarbon. If somebody knows what this knot's called, let me know, because I still can't find it. So what you wind up with, this has a little bit of a tag end here, but that tag end doesn't affect anything. So what you have here is a pretty small knot. Looks a little bit bigger because I have the tag end sticking off here, but I'm not really that worried about it. That tag end, it comes through the guides just fine. And these rods, they all have micro guides, and that's never been an issue. And when it gets wet, it's even more subtle. So I probably could have cut that a little bit closer. Not that big of a deal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this a little bit of the way in here. You can see I'm holding the braid because I don't want it to be going on loose. And as you can see, right here comes the knot. Right there. That came through all these micro guides. No problem. Goes right on the spool. And now I'm going on here with the fluorocarbon. So I'm going to go ahead and spool this up. I'm going to show you, well, you know, I told you this earlier. Make sure what you want is you want the spool, my line's on the thing over here, but you want the spool, I want it to be vertical, like this, and I want it coming off the top. This isn't braid, or this isn't fluorocarbon, but here I'll take one of these spools here. So you want it coming off the top of the spool, because otherwise it's going to jump off of your reel, and you're going to wonder, you're going to be trying to figure out why. I'll show you how to do with the spinning reel in a little bit, because that's really important. Alright, so I went ahead and I got this spooled up now. As you can see, I'm trying to make it where you can see it here. It's a little bit dark. It's in my garage. The line comes up not too far, because you don't want to go too far, and have have it where, you know, hit the thumb spool when you push it down or get in the way. But you can actually see, I don't know if you can see in the camera, it's got a little bit of a green hue just because it's got the braid on the back. But this reel is going to be lighter than the same reel that's spooled up with just fluorocarbon. So I'm saving money, because now every year when I respool this reel, all I have to do is put on, say, 70 yards, maybe 65 yards of fluorocarbon, and the braid stays the same every year. Now after, you know, maybe 5 years or so, it might have to get changed out, but more than likely probably not, as long as you don't keep it wet. If it you know, you keep it in where it's soaked all the time, maybe it'll rot. Out in the sun, yeah, maybe. I doubt it, because it's behind the fluorocarbon. But as long as you take any kind of decent care of your stuff, it's going to last a while. I love it. It's a lot lighter, a lot cheaper, all around. I see no reason to fill your entire spool with fluorocarbon. I'm going to go ahead and get my spinning rod up here, get ready to go. I'm going to show you how to do that. That one's real important. I'm probably going to put them into two separate videos, just so it's not half an hour long to watch it. So we'll see how that works out.